So I would like to welcome you all. My name is Teresa and I'm from ISEC. And today we are here um, because of kiwi.com and his crisis management. In case you doesn't know ISEC, ISEC is non-profitable youth-run organization, and we develop people, and we are trying to help them in a cross-culture experience and international internships. So if you are more interested, feel free to visit our website or information on Facebook page. And right now, I would like to um, give a word to David, who will be talking today about kiwi.com and crisis management.
Okay, hello everybody. Hope you can hear me well and we don't encounter any technical issues. I'm super happy to be here. Thank you, Teresa, for the introduction. Hope you all are doing well in these difficult times. I'm super happy to be here and today and share a couple of insights from what has been happening here internally at kiwi.com. And as a former ISEC member myself, I'm really glad the cooperation with ISEC and kiwi.com is still going strong. So thank you for the introduction. Hope you see the slides. And if yes, so this is what we're going to talk about today. A short intro about myself and the company, just to make sure that we are all on the same page. A little bit about the causality, what happened in the industry and how it actually affected us, what happened. And then a little bit about the main topic. And again, what I'm saying a little bit is that crisis management is a lot broader topic. So this 1 hour that we have today, it would not cover not even a small portion of that. So we are going to focus on prioritization and how we handled team management and communication, which I believe are the founding stones of well-managed crisis. So a few words about myself. I consider myself almost a dinosaur at kiwi.com. I'm here almost 6 years. I joined the company where it was really just a small startup. I was, I think, 55th member. At the time, nobody really counted. It was super small, dynamic, in a small house. I joined, it was not a department at the time, it was just a team of business development. And I was first building affiliate programs and later managed the distribution partnerships, which I later took on completely, and I was heading the distribution partnerships team. So we took care of all the indirect distribution channels. You can think of them as partners that help us deliver traffic, like meta search portals, Skyscanner, Kayak, and so on, as well as B2B partnerships, other resellers, online travel agencies, offline travel agencies, and so on. Currently, I'm heading the fraud and risk team. And in case you don't know what fraud and risk, I wouldn't blame you. I didn't know that much about it before either. Fraud and risk uh, is the focus of preventing illegitimate transactions from happening, and mainly using technological solutions. So under our agenda are fraud prevention solutions, which look at the data in their network, what they're seeing on their website, and decide whether this is a legitimate cardholder or not. But the agenda is a lot bigger, and it involves also customer chargebacks. So that's when, let's say, the illegitimate transaction happens, somebody steals your card, makes a purchase for some reason, because it can happen, it goes through, and then when you notice that in your bank statement, you're not very happy, so you file a chargeback. But since we are also using virtual cards, we also file chargebacks against airlines when they don't want to, for example, refund or give the money back. And we will get back to that later in the presentation. So that's why I'm mentioning what a chargeback is. So it's a payment reversal. Now off to the kiwi.com. In case you don't know, it is a Czech company founded in Brno in the Czech Republic in 2012. Currently, over 2,000 employees and offices in more than 15 locations. Just to give you a hint of the size, before COVID in February this year, we were selling more than 40,000 seats every day. It is important when we are talking about the company and its rocket growth, it's important to stop for a second and look at the vision and the technology that's behind that. Many of you probably heard about virtual interlining. It's a concept that we pioneered and brought to the market. What it actually is that it allows us to combine any airline with any other airline, thus creating unique itineraries, unique routes. Uh, if you know a bit about how the airline industry works, if an airline wants to extend their routes, they want to offer more transportation options, they need to cooperate with other airlines. So they need to strike what is called a code share deal, basically a commercial deal, which is actually quite costly and it takes forever for them to set up. So we completely bypass that. We just take all the simple flights that there are, and we combine them. Uh, Basically what stands between us and other OTAs, online travel agencies, is really that we focus on all the content that there is and we create a new by combining flights and airlines that do not cooperate together. Maybe onto the virtual global super carrier vision. This sounds kind of grandiose, and the vision by itself is quite big. So imagine you want to travel from Brno, as where I'm right now in the office. By the way, thanks Martin for letting me use your office. It's super nice. So I use it for a great background. Imagine that I want to go from this office to New York, for example. It's quite a big trip, but what does it take? I need to get to a bus or train. I need to go to Vienna most likely because let's be honest, our airport is not the strongest. So I need to go to Vienna, probably then take a flight to London, then to New York, and then in New York, I need to get to the final location, which can be another office for an important business meeting, for example. Our goal is really to consolidate all the specific segments, starting from flights, buses, trains, which we already have, by the way, both buses and trains, and we combine together, up to ride hailing like Uber or locally Liftago, and micromobility. You can actually rent an electric scooter, for example. So the goal is here really one platform for all transportation content from any A to any B in the world. It is a huge vision, let's be honest. It will take some time, but when we look at what it can bring to the customers, to travelers, uh, this is what we want to do. We are a company built by travelers for travelers, so this is the idea behind. And while it will take a lot of time, we are already combining flights with buses and trains. So actually, if you look from Brno to New York, you will most likely find a connection with the RegioJet to Vienna, and then maybe Ryanair to London, and then maybe Lufthansa or British Airways to New York. So, and that's all in one click. So this is what the technology enables us to do. I believe it's important to stop for a second and think about the business model, because when it comes down to crisis and how we're managing the most painful issues, it's important to understand how the money flows. And it's not just the case for kiwi.com, it's case for almost any online travel agency. So when you go and book on kiwi.com, yes, you do pay to us, and that's the added value really, that we consolidate all the content with one click, with one payment. It doesn't matter how many tickets there are. But then we go and purchase the flights from every single airline or bus company. So we make it simple for you. Not only that we find it, but we also book it, make the online check-ins and so on. What it means is that the money is actually not with us, right? So we had to purchase the tickets for the traveler, and only a small portion of that fund actually stays with us. It's operational margin, right? We need to buy new technologies, right, servers and so on. So we actually need to run these offices and pay people. So, but there's actually a very small percentage of what really stays with us. So most of the money is with the companies, with the carriers, because they operate the aircraft, they fly from point A to point B. And this will be very important down the road in the presentation when we discuss what were and what still are the most critical issues during this crisis. So the cause, you know what happened, right? The world went on lockdown, right? A pandemic started slowly in China, but then quickly spread throughout the world, and the travel collapsed when the borders were closed. Nothing new. We are still feeling the impacts, and it will probably stay with us for some time. But the important number here is that it never really stopped completely. For example, in the United States and in Russia and big countries, the domestic travel still continued, but majority of travel was basically really stopped. So what kind of effect it had on and still has on kiwi.com and other travel agents? Well, in the travel industry, flights get canceled and people want their money back, so they want refunds. That's quite easy to understand. But people were also afraid. So even though the flights were not canceled, they cancel them. So they're like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I don't feel secure. I don't want to get infected. I'm going to cancel it. This is called voluntary cancellation. And airlines, swamped by the amount of requests and being really fearful of their cash flow, basically stopped refunding. If you ask for a refund early in March, you might have gotten it quite quickly, as previously, pre-COVID. But after that, airlines basically stopped and said, no, 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 we might not fly for some time, which means that we need the cash. We need to pay thousands of people that we employ. We need to pay the lease on the aircraft. And well, they secretly hoped for government support, which in some cases came, some didn't. What did it mean at that time for kiwi.com? India went on lockdown, and this is an important point because we have customer support centers. As I mentioned, we span in offices across multiple regions, and India is one of our strong customer support vendor sites. So we have a couple of vendor sites there in multiple cities, and when they went on a really strict lockdown, we were not even possible to get, I don't know, headphones and laptops to our agents there. So home office was not possible there, and our customer support capacity went down by 75%. So think about 2,000, 2,500 people, most of that agents, let's say, I don't know, 2,000 or 1,500, and then most of them were not available. At the same time, people started asking for refunds. They tried to call us, email us. So we didn't have agents to pick up the calls or answer the emails, but the customer contacts went up by almost 300%. And so there you can already see the ratio, which is kind of just doesn't add up, right? And yeah, some customers, they don't really want to wait. They look for other ways to get money, and chargebacks. I already mentioned that in the beginning. Service chargeback is when you file a chargeback, you ask for the payment reversal in your bank because the service was not delivered. The service chargebacks went up by 900%. So from a team, and that's actually in my agenda right now, from a team that was handling a couple dozen chargebacks maybe every week, it went up to, you know how much. So here's just, you can actually see what it means. I cannot really show you any absolute numbers, but I think it's quite obvious what it meant. The bottom line, this is the week in starting from 1 as January 2020. So in March, it went really crazy. And not only the contacts were up, but since our customers asked for refunds, we have all the requests in the backlog. So we had less people to process the backlog, but the backlog was, as you can see, almost 5,000% of normally the size that we process. So there are quite a few numbers that hopefully give you an idea of what was happening, what still is happening, and why there are delays and so on. And we'll get to that in a second, but hopefully this gives you a scale. So when it comes to crisis management, we have the facts covered, but crisis management is very much about making quick decisions as fast as you can, and hopefully as good decisions as you can make. So the most important decision is really, what is it that we must focus on? And here we go with prioritization. I really like this quote for Jack from Jack Welch. It's a former CEO of General Electric. He says, this is just a small part of it, but he says, rule number 1, cash is king. Rule number 2, communicate. Rule number 3, buy or bury the competition. So this is just a small piece of the quote, which I think is very good for this event. So cash is king. So when it comes to cash, you really need to look after your cash and you need to control your costs. Some countries and some companies received some government support if there was there was such a thing available. You can imagine that in the, I think in Czech we call it paragraph, right? So when the people actually don't go to work because they have nothing to work on, but they still get paid in full, hopefully. We didn't have to utilize it that much because we had so much work. It wasn't like in automotive where the production lines actually stopped and people didn't have anything to do. We had so much work that most of the teams that were impacted, they had impacted agendas. We just moved them to more critical areas if their skills and expertise allowed for it. You have to limit all non-essential expenses. What do I mean by non-essential? Non-essential is anything really at the point when the crisis is happening that you don't necessarily need for survival. I mentioned that we have a lot of agents across the globe to cover different time zones, different languages, and they cost money, of course. But because they are in vendor sites, outsourced customer support, we were able to scale it down. We don't need to, of course, close it completely, but we were able to scale it down, which helped to limit the expenses. We temporarily froze all hiring activities. You understand why? I mean, first of all, you need to focus on important things, not onboarding new people. But this was only temporary, and we are actually right now we are back to hiring because we need to fill in critical roles. And of course, you don't purchase new hardware, you don't refill coffee machines and so on when the people actually are not even in the office. So everything that was non-essential was somewhat limited. And this is an important point. In a business so big as kiwi.com is, you have a lot of solution providers, a lot of companies that you partner with at, for various reasons. So asking them for delayed payments, or what we call pricing vacation, that means that you just ask them, okay, you know what, we are not going to pay for this service for 3 months. Are you okay with that? You're going to help us out a lot. And this actually strengthens the relationship. The delayed payment is obvious. In the in Czech language, we have a saying, you find friends in times of need, right? And here you have the best chance to really test how weak or how strong your business relationships are. Whether the partners actually go forward and they try to help out, or they are not that helpful and they actually make your life a bit more difficult. Securing financial support. This is a very important point. You are generating loss. Companies are being hit really hard, and you need money. You need cash because cash is king. You need cash to pay your people who are actually working to mitigate the issues. We are super lucky to have General Atlantic as our investor and shareholder. They got our back, and they're very supportive, which is great because they, first of all, they have a lot of investments in travel, so they know what would happen. They see it firsthand from various companies they invested in, and they are super professional when it comes to dealing with crisis, when it comes to growing companies, and they see a lot of potential in kiwi.com. So they do get our back. And of course, if you have the possibility, and why I can say that we have our cooperation with banks and so on, so getting loans, credit lines, anything that really can make sure that your company is financially stable and healthy. The financial exposure and liability is an important point that might not be an obvious one when it comes to crisis. But as I mentioned, chargebacks are a huge issue, but not only because the people file chargebacks, but because what it means is that if you do not dispute the case, in many occasions, we are not the ones to blame, even though it looks like it. The customers bought the tickets from us, even though we are just the middleman, right? They are angry at us, which I understand, but they file chargebacks against us, and we don't have the money look after and that they want back, right? We need to get it back from the airlines, which we are trying to do. So we need to defend against the chargebacks. If you do not dispute, you lose the case and the money is taken away from you. It's not like, yeah, okay, so we will have to pay something. No, the money is taken away. So this is a huge financial exposure. Before the crisis, we had only about maybe 10 agents trained to dispute chargebacks, which proved substantially inadequate at the times of need. So what we did, we trained everybody who was available, and I was really surprised and kind of taken back by the sheer will of our internal people, internal employees, everybody who got their agenda impacted. They were looking for help, how they can help other people. Some went and started, working with the CS teams to get back request refunds from the airlines. Some actually went and helped us, so we trained them, we gave them all the tooling, and they were able to help us fighting the chargebacks, so we can mitigate the liability. And account management of third parties, as I mentioned, the business partnerships are super important. When financial institutions get nervous, and we are in times of prosperity, we are pushing millions of euros through their channels. When they get nervous because they know you are a travel company and the travel is under fire, they're not sure if you are going bust the next week, or if you are financially healthy. So they start really pushing you hard. They want deposits, they want bank guarantees, that they want to see into your accounting whether you are really financially healthy or not. So account management team has to do a lot of work to keep them calm, to manage their expectations, to really proactively communicate that we are doing all right, that we are managing what's happening, and that they don't have to be worried. We also purchase the tickets for our customers directly from the airlines, which we partner with, or we actually have even partners that are locally consolidating the volumes, which means they can get better prices from the airlines because they have a better leverage commercially. But what it means that we also sometimes have pre-funded deposits. So we send the money in advance, so then we can smoothly work and we can book without actually having to pay for every single ticket and so on. And now everybody is having issues with cash, so you need to request the money back, which can become an issue, right? So all these points, or all these pitfalls, are really your exposure, and we try to manage that exposure as much as we could. And I can say that we have been very successful. As I'm part of fintech department, I was really close to teams like acquiring and out payments, where they really deal directly and daily with financial institutions. So I saw how much effort was put into that. So this was critical. Kiwi.com is a product-driven company. We put all our eggs into product because we believe that the right product for our customers is what can distinguish us and differentiate us from the competition, who are usually lacking in technology. Their websites are old, not that user friendly, and so on. So we try to put a lot of effort into product development. And in the early stages of COVID, we had to switch to short-term planning. Flexibility was the key here. We had to be really able to react to sudden changes, and we couldn't really look into like 5 years ahead and saying, yes, what will it mean in 5 years? No, right now, what is important is what's going to happen the next day, the next week, the next month. So we focused on two primary segments, I can say: refunds and chargebacks, because these two were under the biggest pressure and they needed a lot of improvement. Because imagine that in times of prosperity, when everything is growing, it's like asking the country, the government, hey, you should buy a lot of respirators and masks when there is no pandemic. If actually they went with it, and they would be like buying crazy amounts, people would be asking like, what is wrong with you? Why are you making such a huge reserves? On the other hand, they sold it, right? So this is the same here. Chargebacks had only enough focus on to make it work, like, yeah, we have a few people working there, it works, we dispute all the chargebacks that we should, and refunds, yes, we progress on that, but it didn't get enough attention that now we realized it should have. So we started focusing really heavily on chargebacks and refunds. So in chargebacks, it was all about data management, tooling, and automation. If we have all the notifications from the acquirers, if we have the right tools for our agents, and if ideally as much as possible is automated, your life is much easier, especially in the volumes that I showed you on previous slides. Refunds is very, very much the same. We introduced new refund options for the customers that are more tailored to the crisis times. Still, it's not ideal. People want refunds. They don't really care what is the option there. They want the money back. But we try to do our best there. We had to prioritize the backlog. When you have hundreds of thousands of requests, you have to prioritize what goes first, how you process that. Can we automate some of that? Do we need to put agents manually on some other segment? So this is a very important piece. But when you get to the later stages, and I don't want to say that we are, of course, well through the crisis. It means that we are not taken by surprise anymore. We have the processes in place. We know what to do. So we are stabilized, and we are finally once again looking ahead a bit more. So it doesn't mean that we are switching the focus from refunds or chargebacks. No, we still need to get the money from the airline so we can send them to the customers. But we can already start in some development teams looking at what are the product aspects that, let's say, the post-pandemic world needs. So we are looking again at the go-to-market strategy planning. This is important. We need to plan the future marketing efforts, the IT resources, and so on, based on strategic planning again. Travel content, so getting all the current airline deals, discounts, whatever they make available. When some borders become open again, airlines start flying again, buses start driving, we want to have that available, because that goes with the vision, which is a virtual global super carrier. And yeah, as I mentioned a few times, the features on the website, in the application, again, we are a little bit back to that. But again, I want to stress out that 99% of the resources and everything we really focus on is right now still getting the money from the airline so we can send them back to the customers. But at least we are now stabilized. Teams and communication. This is a nice part, because as Brian Tracy says, the true test of leadership is how well you function in a crisis. And I can vouch for that. I was really surprised, and in a positive way, that we function as a company really well. Everybody went home because, yeah, you couldn't go to the office. So we worked from there, and probably it proved a lot of people wrong, not just in the company but everywhere, that home office can actually work, right? And many of you probably right now sitting at home, if you are students, you are having distant education, right? So you're joining your teachers over Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or whatever. If you work in a company, it's likely that you are also working from home office, at least partially. But when you think about it, I'm really happy that this is the positive part of the crisis. When you think about it, it's not really about going to the office or not, but it's about making the world connected, so you can actually work from anywhere, you can add value. So how did we deal with that? As I already kind of gave the tip away, it worked really well, and I can stress out a few points which make it even easier for a company that's, for example, struggling with home office policies. My personal belief is that it's not about the time spent at work, but really about the productivity. So if I'm sitting here, because right now I'm in the office, If I'm sitting here for 10 hours, but I deliver 2 hours of really productive work, what it's worth. I, Seriously, if I'm sitting at home and if I can do everything I would do here, I can do from home. Does it add value to the company? I believe so. And for that, you need clearly defined KPIs. By that, I mean key performance indicators. So if I know the task that I'm supposed to work on, if I know how they are measured, me as a manager, I know that my team is doing a good job. You need the right communication channels. We internally run on Slack, but we also utilize Zoom for conference calls. And this is a crucial piece. If you're struggling with communication, or if we would be struggling with communication, this would probably not kind of all click together. I can see that some smaller companies or organizations that are really focused on face-to-face communication might now have troubles with that. But just Zoom, just call each other, right? And as I mentioned, it's really about productivity. What I was really happy to see is how transparent the communication was, because it kept everybody at ease. So we switched from monthly all hand meetings to weekly online briefings. So every week we have Oliver, our CEO, talking to the whole company about what's new in our product, what's new or what's changed on the market itself. If we are recovering, if the market is recovering, what the competition is doing. And this transparency helped a lot to keep everybody calm, because the transparency about our financial health was an important piece. Clearly, and without any trying to hide anything, we were showing how much below the budget we are, how much we actually need to grow again in terms of volumes to start being profitable and so on. So I believe just being transparent with all the people actually helped to kind of drive away the panic. So people were not like, oh, are we going bust tomorrow? When we actually share that we have strong backing from our investors, when we have enough cash to sustain the operations for as long as we can right now, then people, of course, were a lot more happy, and it also they got motivated because they see that they can actually contribute, and they not only planning but defining the clear steps that we must take to get out of the situation. That was also a very, very important piece. So I can personally vouch for our internal communication that actually went really well. For example, with my team, what we did, we set up daily what we call office hours. So every day at a certain time, we were available to all other teams to sync with each other, and it kind of substituted a little bit the face-to-face communication. And it was actually so effective that we kept it even now when the first wave kind of went away. We started coming to office again, and we actually kept it anyway, because it proves it works. So daily things, you would say, wow, it's a lot of meetings, right? Yeah, but if you have it just for 30 minutes, just to see what's new, it actually helps quite nicely. So it all kind of ties to people, right? As Zig Ziglar says, I don't know if you know it, if you know him. He's like many others right now, but he's quite old actually. He is a lot about self-development and sales, so a lot of motivational quotes. But this one really underlines what I was talking about, and that you don't build a business, you build the people, and the people actually carry it on, right? So I'm happy that this actually proved correct. So I know that you might have a lot of questions, so I tried to keep it kind of high level, quick. We did spend 40 minutes almost discussing some of the highlights, but what we didn't talk about before we get to what we talked about, we didn't talk about how we forecasted, how we planned what the volumes will be, how we kind of base the scenarios on what can happen, because this is a topic for an additional few hours. how revenue management and how other analytical teams had to really work tirelessly to make sure that we have all the data available and that we can plan based on facts, not just on a feeling. So what we talked about today, in just a quick recap, is that the industry collapsed and it kind of turned into a war of refunds and chargebacks. That cash is super important, and when we are in a crisis, we need to have the financial exposures and expenses under control. And I believe the home office is the new office, and transparent communication goes a long way. So that's all from my side. I hope that there are questions at Slido. If you do not know or if you haven't joined yet, please go to slido.com, the hashtag Ask Kiwis, and you can share, you can ask questions. So I'll be happy to answer. I have a team online that will help me manage the questions. If there are questions that repeat too often, they will just put one through just so we can answer that for everybody. And let me switch to sharing of the Slido. Here we go. What was the first thing that you had to change when COVID started? From Eva. First thing that we had to change. When COVID started, it was all messy, right? Everywhere. So first, what we had to establish was a baseline. Like, what is it that is really happening? When the lockdown hit, it went in a couple of days. All the flights were gone. So we had to look at facts, look at data, and say, okay, so the flights are gone, they're canceled. What does it mean? So we had to establish some baselines, some scenarios, what might happen. And this was one of the first things that was actually communicated across the company. Look, this is happening. These are our projections, and this is what we need to do. So what we had to change was, of course, move home, everybody, right? And then started prioritizing what was on fire, which was again refunds and chargebacks. So next question. In case I didn't answer anything, I hope I did, but you can ask in the chat somewhere, I guess, or you can ask it again. Hi, David, anonymous. I have a few questions. What was the major change since COVID? Did you have any HR cuts? If so, how it influenced the mood in the company? What is the biggest challenge for Kiwi.com right now? And do you have any news coming up at Kiwi.com? Wow, a lot of questions. Okay, I'll take them one by one. What was the major change? I probably described that in the previous question. So yeah, we had to switch the kind of modus operandi to short-term planning, really set up kind of task groups and say, look, this is what we are going to do, this is how we're going to do that, and plan, but not the long term, but really there were daily checks. Management had daily briefings every day. They had to look at data. They had to see if everything is going as we predicted or change the scenarios. Did you have any people cuts? So we didn't have to lay people off. So this is something that is not true for all travel companies. Many travel companies, many competitors, many partners had to lay off a lot of people. We didn't have to do that, which when it comes to core employees. We did have to scale down the vendor sites, but this is how the cooperation works. They usually support multiple different companies. So the companies have different expectations of them, and they need a different amount of people from them to be trained and so on. When it comes to core employees, we didn't have to do any mass layoffs. So this was very positive. If so, how it influenced the mood in the company? Yeah, it influenced it in a positive way, because it was constantly reminded that we are doing everything not to touch the core employees. What is the biggest challenge for Kiwi.com right now? Well, it still is, getting the money from the airlines and sending it to the customers. It is still the biggest challenge, because again, it hurts us really, really badly, because we are, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are travelers. We built the company for travelers, and seeing what is happening in industry, it really hurts, and we are trying to do our best, and in every talk with Oliver online, you can find the same answer there. Do you have any news coming up at kiwi.com? Any news? Nothing I could share right now. That would be some breakthrough. But the news are still the same. We are working our asses off to get the money back from the airlines to send it to the customers. And as I mentioned, we're already looking ahead and seeing like, okay, what will be travelers' expectations of online travel agencies? Probably maybe coverage protection questions will be popping up. So maybe some other insurance options and so on. Who knows? So we are assessing how the travel will look like. So I hope I answered. Well, okay, Jackie, what keeps you interested and motivated personally for so many years still working for Kiwi.com? This is a good question. Uh, I didn't really realize that the years went by like this, really. Uh, First of all, what kept me here for as long as I'm here is because it's super dynamic and I like dynamic environments. Also because people get opportunities. So when you are proactive enough, even though you don't have 10 years of experience, you will quickly grow to positions and to roles where you can actually make an impact and you see that impact yourself. You can be in business, you can strike great deals, even though you don't have 15 years of sales experience, right? Uh, I recently changed, I'm leading the team of fraud and risk for about a year now. And again, coming from the business development background, they're doing that for 4.5 years or something like that, and then switching to a sector, an industry, fintech, which I knew very little about, but I could add value anyway because of the managerial skills that I had and the business insight that I have from the other department. I quickly learned about how fintech and how the fraud and risk operates, and I like technology. So again, this is almost like changing a company. So, and it really does feel like I changed the company completely. So that's why I'm still kind of motivated to be here. Even now it's 7 p.m. and giving you the talk. So I hope I answered, Jackie. Vlada Novacek. In what way do you see the culture at kiwi.com among employees different to other companies? I didn't work for too many companies, so it's really difficult to answer that. I think it can be. I mean, when I talk to some of my friends working at huge corporates, and you could say that kiwi.com is a huge corporate right now, but actually it only looks like it by numbers. Internally, it still feels in many teams kind of punk style, you know. So how does the culture differentiates from others? Yeah, it's very young, it's dynamic, it's vibrant. It never really stays the same for too long. This also means that it's not for everybody. There are people who like constant environments. So if you are like that, you shouldn't be probably working here, even though there are teams that are a lot more stable right now. But still, changes happen quickly, and that's probably what differentiates us. You know, that people actually care, and that's what I said. You know, that people actually were looking for ways to help. We had our members from the reception. We had people from marketing. Everybody join in, learning how to dispute chargebacks, and we work together. So yeah, this is probably what I feel might be different. Anonymous, I'm curious if you are accepting students on an internship, and if so, do you offer paid internships? In general, I can say yes to both. I actually personally hired a couple of people on internships, and they are still with the company, which I'm super glad for. And they have grown into interesting roles, and they are really having an impact. So in general, yes, I would say go and look at our job postings. And even if there is nothing that would be screaming an internship, because right now we are looking a bit more at, let's say, more senior people, but it doesn't mean that we shut the doors on students. So not at all. Actually, students, especially the proactive ones, are in our sites. So go, and if you don't see an internship posted there, do get in touch with our HR. And if it's not available right now, they will get in touch with you when it will become available. Anonymous, is there a change in Kiwi that you like regarding kind of COVID situation, some advantages. Yeah, I think I mentioned the one with home office, for example, and the the less reliance on actually standing here in flesh and bones, right? So that worked really well, and I'm happy that right now is. But let's be honest. In Kiwi, it has always been a little bit more benevolent towards home office than from what I hear from friends at other companies. So, and I also come from business development background where I was able to work from anywhere. I was often off on business trips in Asia where I was there for 2 weeks, traveling from country to country. So I could work from there. I could work on the plane. I could work anywhere really. So this was really the lifestyle that I had, and it didn't really change for me when the COVID came and I had to stay at home. I didn't really care. I had the team on Zoom, 2 clicks away. So these are advantages and changes in Kiwi. Yeah, that's about it. Really, that people got more connected and more reliant on technology. Kind of. This is what I see. Hansa Sokup, how have your people reacted to change, home offices, and lack of person-to-person communication? This is a good question because home office is not the best option for everybody. Even in my team, I have people who prefer coming to the office because it motivates them. And yeah, we are social animals, right? Social creatures. We need to talk to people. So some people, of course, didn't like the lockdown. Some were okay. Some people prefer home office. Some people prefer being here. So it's mixed bag really. Overall, I would say it's positive. Yeah. Ellie, how did you prepare for the second wave of COVID? To be honest, the ground, the, the the basis of everything that we did in the first wave remains the same for that doesn't matter how many waves there are really. So uh, this is what we didn't try to just survive the first wave. We tried to put in processes and technologies and people that can actually manage the load. So we did a lot of automation. So for example, in chargebacks, now it's the numbers are slowly dropping. So we don't need that many people. Many people went back to their teams, but we have trained the rest of the agents. We have automated a few things, so it's easier to do the job. And if it comes to another wave, and we will have again a spike in chargebacks, refunds, whatever, we are already prepared to train them quickly. We already know what worked and what didn't in the first wave. So I would say that the preparation is really in the experience that we gained. But the ground rules, and the base principles of how we manage the first wave remain the same if there are any number of waves. Anonymous, as a former ISACer, do you see being a member or intern abroad as an opportunity for young people where to get skills? Absolutely. Not only I was in ISAC, but I also took part in Erasmus, stayed twice, every time a year. So I spent 2 years in Scandinavia, where I met a lot of people. I got to experience their educational system. So I definitely recommend, even though right now it's not really the time that would allow you to go anywhere you want. But when it settles down, when you again have opportunities, I strongly recommend going for either an ISAC internship, being a member, or yeah, just going for an international exchange stay, whatever. Just go and travel, because that's why I'm a strong believer that travel will actually come back. And no, it won't be just like, oh, people won't travel anymore because they can just call each other over Zoom. I believe people will travel because it's always been a part of our culture, nature. We want to explore, we want to meet new cultures, and it helps to bring in the diversity, lay down the barriers, and fears of other cultures. So if you are thinking about that, go for it 100%. Yenda, hi David, thank you for the presentation. You're welcome. If the situation regarding COVID comes, who do you see as a direct competition of kiwi.com? It's a very good question. Direct competition. If we talk about the just the landscape of travel industry. Of course, there are other online travel agencies, right? Uh, the big ones like Expedia or Trip.com. These are they built on what the traditional agencies did. However, they're not bringing in new content like we are trying to do. Like they're not bringing in new combinations. They're not trying to bring you from point A to point B. But they do consolidate also different means of transportation. But it's really separate. So in one app, I don't know, maybe on Trip.com or Expedia, you can rent the car, you can do that, but it's not kind of connected. So when it comes to the grand vision, I don't see a competition right now. When it comes to general travel industry, I do think that there are, of course, a lot of travel agencies way bigger than us, so you can consider them as competition. Eva, how have you communicated changes with the employees? Yeah, so change management. Uh, yeah, ideally in a transparent fashion. So, I mean, people know what's happening, right? And if you actually tell them clearly what is happening, they can help you the most, right? If you are just giving them, look, do this, and they don't see the bigger picture, it's a bit harder and it doesn't really help that much. So, how did we communicate? Yeah, as I said, plainly, openly, and transparently. So, yeah. Anonymous, have you ever been? Oh, okay, let's jump in. Anonymous, hi. How did you keep people motivated and connected to the company and to the team? Well, now we didn't have to fire people, so that's already a good sign, right? And we gave them the part to play. They could see that whatever they are doing, it helps to bring us through the crisis. Uh, so the engagement it plays a big role. We had development teams, in IT development teams that worked, I don't know how many hours. They almost didn't sleep. Right now they have so much vacation that we will probably miss them for 6 months, but they worked for weeks and weeks straight over the weekends, so you could see how engaged they were. And we didn't have to do external motivation, so we didn't have to wave money and say please work. It's really part of the culture. People just want to help, and they are motivated and connected. So we didn't have to do much. We really just were transparent. We didn't, sugarcoat anything, and it worked. Wojciech from the chat. How is the war with Ryanair going? A very good question. Yes, there are airlines that help, if try to cooperate with others to get through the crisis, because we actually pull the same rope here, right? And there are airlines that try to profit on it by doing, let's say, not very positive things. So Ryanair is a very small piece of our portfolio when it comes to flight content. We cover almost 90% of the global air content. So Ryanair is, even though it is a big airline, important in Europe, it is just a part of that. How is it going? Well as it can, because I mean they are just using the war, that the lawsuits as PR, which is really the worst use case for the court system, right? And yeah, what can I say? They sued a last minute. They lost. They are doing that again because they know that they can gain PR. They want to bring traffic to their website. But really, do you expect customers to go on websites one by one, checking who is actually flying where, and if they can get a better price over there? They will not do that anyway. There are Skyscanner. So if you want just a comparison, it's like the local Heureka, right? You go to Skyscanner or Kayak and you check and you get all the listings. Uh, Among them, kiwi.com will be there as well. If you really look for the best deal, best maybe route, sometimes fastest, sometimes, I don't know, shortest, whatever, you go to kiwi.com and we might have some combinations, even with Ryanair flights that they are not technologically able to do themselves. So I would say it's going well. I hope they actually start kind of pulling on the same rope as everybody else. They are claiming that OTAs are not refunding customers, but it's actually them holding the money. So it's a sad situation. And if you read more about that, you can probably make your own picture. Honza Sokup. In case of a similar event crisis happens in the future, what would you do differently? What would we do differently? A tricky question. Well, now there would be even less mess and less panic, because if something like this happens, we already have the first-hand experience with something that probably won't repeat again in the scale, in the volume of the crisis. So if there's something smaller, it's gonna be like, I don't want to say a piece of cake, but it's going to be definitely easier because we have managed such a huge crisis so far, and let's see how it continues. But if a similar event or smaller crisis happens, we're going to have the tools, we're going to have the experience and expertise internally to handle that. So we will have less mess, we will have clear communication in the beginning, and we will just know what to do. So this is what we will do. Dominic, Kiwi wanted to buy airplanes in the past. Is this an opportunity to buy airplanes on sale? It might be an opportunity. Personally, I don't have any information that we will be looking into this opportunity, at least to the extent of information that I have. Yes, this is a good question. It is an opportunity, although we did step back from the plane to buy aircraft and operate it ourselves, because we realized that we are strong in other segments, in other parts of the industry than just flying the airline. And what Oliver always says, and I really agree with that wholeheartedly, is that everybody should do what they are good at. So airlines should focus on flying. Right now, they're trying to do everything. They try to sell. They try to take care of the customer. They try to fly. They try to do too many things. They should just fly, because this is what they do best. Online travel agencies like us, we should take care of the customer. We should do the technology behind it. We should be selling. We should be taking care of the customer, right? So I believe we will not be buying planes anytime soon, but it is an opportunity. Hi, David, Clara. What's the main lesson that Kiwi has learned from the first wave of pandemic? What's the main lesson? There were so many. What is the main one? Yeah, that maybe that will sound kind of sugary, but that actually it's the people that get you through. That if you rely on your people, if you have the right people in the right positions internally, you can get through the crisis. And as for the pandemic, I don't think anybody believed something like this can happen. So I believe we all now learned that things like this can happen, and it's that we definitely need to prepare processes and ourselves for that. So this would be my answer. Anonymous. Have you ever been solving this kind of problem that could affect the existence of kiwi.com before the start of the global pandemic? In the very beginning, when it was really just a small company, we ran into kind of a nice issue, but it could have definitely jeopardized the existence of kiwi.com. And that was that we were growing so fast that we were selling more than the money we had available to buy the tickets for. Because when you think about the cash flow cycles, you pay on kiwi.com, it takes sometimes a couple of days before we actually have the money, right? So when you pay, we have to buy the ticket right away on the airline website or through the API or through the provider, which means that we need to have the money to buy that. And in the very early stage, when we started growing super fast, we actually had to take on an investment to support us. So I would say it was a nice issue, but it could definitely jeopardize the existence. So, and I'm sure there will be probably more examples like that throughout the history, but I cannot think of a better one right now. Eva, How have you handled the innovations during these times? Have you waited until they will be 100% finished, or have you released them sooner? So it's not just about the COVID times. We don't really go the waterfall product management style where you plan the product and project, then you work on it for 2 years, and then you come to the market with it and realize that it's already outdated. So we work on what we call MVP. So it's a minimum viable product, and so you always go with smaller iterations. So, and here, because as I mentioned on the slides, you have to be super fast. You have to make quick decisions, and you have to test. You don't know what actually works. You don't know what was going to change on the market tomorrow or the next week. So what happened was that we said, okay, we need to do this with the refunds. We need to automate, I don't know, this bulk. How to do it? Well, first, let's do it in a way that we just use some Excel sheets, and just try if it works. If it does, let's automate that, then put in a database, then put some, I don't know, tool on top of that. So it was iteration by iteration that most of the product development was following, and it still is. So every single product, we usually build just the minimum of that to test if it works or not. If the people like it, then we go with that. If it does, then we extend. We build a robust solution. So that kind of follows us through daily work. Daniela. Hi, David. Based on your estimates, when do you think the situation in the international travel market will stabilize and return to the level it had been on before the pandemic? So unfortunately, nobody in the industry has a crystal ball, and our projections are being changed and adjusted almost on a weekly basis. We try to grab data from companies like IATA, OAG. These are huge organizations that gather what's happening on the market even regularly. So right now, what we estimate that we will get back to the pre-corona levels probably mid next year, but this is really just like shooting in the air. It's really hard to say, and nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So this is all I can give you right now. Our best case or base case scenario is that roughly mid next year we should be hitting back the numbers, but let's see. Kuba, who is your favorite Kiwi.com employee? On more serious note, in your personal opinion, is there anything that Kiwi.com failed to execute, deal with, address, or screwed up during Corona? So I'm going to skip the favorite employee part. What we failed to execute? We screwed up on many things, but they were usually a part of something bigger. And this probably kind of ties to the previous question where we go with iterations. So there were many mistakes learned during the time that we've been managing the crisis. What we kind of didn't realize was so important was how chargebacks are important, and how also filing chargebacks against airlines to at least get the money back for their customers, how important that segment is. So we didn't have that many processes around that. But what else we didn't address, or we failed to execute? I'm having troubles right now thinking about, because nothing really pops up to my mind as this was a major fail, because there were so many smaller things. Things were so dynamic that just the fact that the industry collapsed is already I don't want to say a fail, but it happened, right? So we did what we thought was the best at the time. So right now I can't probably give you a better answer, so sorry. Anonymous, what is the biggest change of Kiwi.com, both as a product and as a company culture, before the COVID and after? Product as well as company culture. Company culture, I believe that we got closer to each other, that we kind of, as I said, we engaged a lot more. So the people that are motivated even more, or they were, now are even more. People who weren't probably are, or still aren't, I don't know. Too many of us. But as for the product side, we made a lot of product changes, and but these were mainly to cope with the with the issues, so with the refund. So we introduced refund options, new refund options. We had to rethink the way how we are going to approach the market when it calms down. So a lot of product planning was adjusted, but the vision has stayed the same, and it will probably stay the same because that's the grand vision, really. And as we are a product-driven company, the vision follows the product follows the vision. So I wouldn't say there was a major change, really. Temporary changes that we focused on refunds, chargebacks, and communication to the customers, and company culture that we really got together. Elizabeth, did you get advice or draw inspiration on crisis management from any other companies that have gone through a similar situation? Partially. I don't know what our top management did, but they are in touch with many companies, so probably they did share and they did try to come up with ideas how to help each other and how to share best practices. For example, what we did, at least in my industry in fraud and risk, we took part in many online conferences. We got in touch with partners that have also forensic departments, and we shared some insights on chargebacks. Great cooperation there was when we cooperated with one of the partners, also a huge online travel agency, and we shared data about uh, government restrictions in different countries. This helps us a lot to draft the right dispute letters when we dispute chargebacks. So this was a great example of cooperation and kind of inspiration, because they started working on that much faster than us before we realized that this has a big impact, and they were so nice to share that we could have actually benefited from that. So it was a nice example. But yeah, I'm sure that everybody, because we were at home working all day, people took part in conferences where they shared with peers. But I personally, hmm, rather than uh, or something else that I already shared, I cannot really think of anything else. So, and one more from Ellie. How does the still changing situation influence your short and long term planning? Yeah. So as I said, short term was mainly when it started, when everything was on fire, and now we are slowly shifting to mid-term to long-term planning, where we still keep the processes and the focus that we have right now to mitigate the issues. And with long-term planning, as I mentioned, the go-to-market strategy uh, definitely got changed partially about which markets we are going to approach and how, what channels we're going to use. Uh, Also, the product is impacted by the product market, but the go-to-market strategy as well. If we decide to go locally in a market, we need local payment methods. We need maybe different translations. We need something else, right? So this is how it impacted on the high level, really. Anonymous, what do you think is the most disturbing things in the home office and keep you out of focus? What to do with it? Well, the most disturbing. Uh, okay, so if you cannot focus, it's probably because you are doing several different things in the same room. So I don't know, if you try to imagine that you try to work from your bed, the mindset is it's like, oh, this is bed, this is my bed, this is where I go to sleep. So maybe unconsciously you are not in the most motivating mode to actually really sit and do something. So uh, what I was doing that actually when I was in ISAC, to keep myself in focus and almost like in the office, was that when I was supposed to have sales calls, cold calls to companies to set up meetings, even though I was doing the calls from my home. At the time, I was living in Ostrava, in dormitory actually. So what I did, I actually put on a shirt. I dressed like going to the meeting, and then started having the calls. That actually kind of put me in the mood, like, okay, right now I'm in the sales mood. I'm calling the companies. I'm going after that, right? And it definitely kind of distinguishes it for me at least. So what I do is that I sit in a separate room from my wife. Uh, I, I kind of lock myself up there, and I don't get distracted. So distraction is definitely a part of home office, but you need your routines. If you need silence, then try to get it somehow. If you cannot, just get good headphones, and try to set up routines. This will definitely help you. And if you work in your pajamas, it probably also influences your subconscious mind. So dress up. Anonymous, good evening. Let me ask you, how Kiwi.com is able to provide the service and connectivity between bus operators, airlines, etc. So it's based on the technology. So first of all, we need a huge database of all the information, so of all the flights, of all the bus routes, and so on. So we get that information, we scrape it from the website, we get it from the providers, we get it from anywhere we can. We keep it in the database and we update that almost constantly. Then we have proprietary algorithms that actually try to look for combinations. They build billions and billions of combinations every hour, and they, based on a certain rule set, they pick the best combinations based on price, time, and length. So that's how we are able to connect, really, And then we have a lot of automation to actually book those flights. So one thing is knowing that Ryanair, Wizz Air, and Lufthansa fly at these times, so we can connect it and make a great connection. But then you need also a way to book it. So then you need API connections. You book it manually if you need to. You have booking partners and so on. So you have two sides of the whole flow. Violet. Um, what can customers do when he is waiting for a refund for more than 7 months? Where is a problem? Is there missing contact from the airlines? So yeah, what can the customer do? Well, unfortunately, only wait. What we are doing, and this is, as I said, most of the resources still go there, is that we are trying to recover the money from the airlines. As I mentioned on the slide, we gave the money to the airlines, and we gave the tickets to the customer. Now the customer wants the money back, and we are on his behalf. We are trying to get the money from the airlines. So wait, or if yeah, this is probably not a good idea, but if you see, I don't know, airlines uh, claiming that they do refund or something like that, you can probably see that it's probably not truth, because otherwise we and other OTAs would have been refunding the money already. So this is, for example, the case of Ryanair. So yeah, when you think about the refunds pre-pandemic, we would request the refund, we would send it to the customer. Right now, when we cannot get it from the airline, we cannot send it from our own pocket, because we just don't have the money. It's just too much. So unfortunately, we all have to wait. Some of my colleagues, they also have canceled flights. So believe that we will do our best, because we are trying to do our best. So if you are waiting, I hope that you will be a bit more patient, for a bit longer, and believe in us. But yeah, what is your biggest fear regarding the future of Q.com? Fear. Hmm. I don't think I fear really anything. So far, I've seen the world's biggest crisis, from the inside, and I know that it be somehow managed so far. So I think we can actually really do anything what we set out to do. So I don't really fear about the future of Q.com. Yeah, the company might grow too big. Maybe people will think, oh, now it's too big for the mindset that I like when it's super small teams and so on. So it will change. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it will. My biggest fear would be that it slows down. So plainly as that. And if it doesn't happen, because so far it slowed down a little bit from the super small 50 people startup. If it slows down to the point where it's not moving, then this is my fear. But otherwise, I do not fear for the future of Q.com. Clara, hi David. I've seen a lot of assumptions about the increase of business flights due to pandemic discovery. that online calls works as well. From a point of view, are the business trips of business leaders going to increase and online conferences are going to rule the world of business? I think the ratio will shift a bit, but I don't think it's gonna be just conferences and calls right now. I can claim that personally because I was doing sales and business development for almost 5 years, and I know that there are regions where you cannot substitute human touch. You cannot substitute shaking hands and having a dinner with a Chinese company. You just cannot. I mean, I've tried. I can assure you that it doesn't work. So you can call with them, you can Skype them, you can email them. Maybe you sometimes get an answer, but nothing really moves. Then you go there, you show that you are a human being, that you share a lot more than you can share over email. You shake hands, you drink some booze, and this is how you build the relationship. So I do not think that business travel will disappear, but it will definitely shift the ratio. So sometimes if you don't have to travel, you will probably opt for a Zoom call or I don't know some other call, but it will not disappear for sure. Tommy, and the last question: do you think this crisis will have long-lasting effects on the industry? I believe so. It will have a long-lasting effect. Some positive, some negative. It will definitely not be the same industry as we used to know it. It will be a different industry. So people kind of preaching that it will come back to the normal. It will be the new normal. So it will come back to something more stable, and it will grow again. At least that's what I believe in. But it will not be the same. So the crisis will have changed it, and we can already see that from the first looks around. So yeah, this would be my take on it. Okay, so these are all the questions. Yeah, it took a bit more than 1 hour, but I hope it was beneficial for you. Uh, in case you are interested, you're one of the students, or you are looking for a change and you want something dynamic, as I mentioned, just go and look at the job postings that we have. Get in touch with our HR. Just follow, if you are a developer, follow the code.kiwi.com. We right now, I don't know how often, but we organize hackathons and other events. So we really invest a lot and bring spotlight to not only Brno but the technology industry, travel industry. And I hope you liked it. I'll be very looking forward to any feedback that I might get, maybe on the Facebook event. And yeah, thank you all for attention. And thank you, Isaac, for organizing this event. It was my pleasure to speak today. Thank you all. Bye bye.